1920 I did the work. And then I'm going to talk about a new study we did on a simple botanical walk, but where we tried to study every single species we could find and identify. This was in July. And then talk briefly about the sensitivity of the results to picture quality, because of course that's crucial. And finally discuss about uses and users. So, the improvements since 2020. My initial study, which was published in AOB Plants, looked at about 14 apps, of which 10 got into the final publication, and I've ignored some of the not-so-good ones down the right, and concentrating here on Plant ID, which is different because it's actually a website, PlantNet, Google Lens, Flora Incognita, and Seek by iNaturalist. In addition, for the more modern work, I'm looking at iNaturalist as well. So these are the pictures I used in the original study. We only looked at about 38 species, or 38 images, but they covered a range of leaf parts, leaves, flowers, fruits, whole plants, and a range of types, monocots, herbs, and woody plants. And you can see some are quite challenging. They're just rosettes of some plants, leaves of others, fruits of others, and so on. And the remaining pictures, here we have, they included very common plants and very rare plants, Cyperus fuscus, for example, or Carex pauciflora, but we covered grasses, sedges, all sorts of things. So, the results. This was what we found in the original study. The best apps were producing about 50% of every attempt. We did 5 replicates of everything in the first study. About 50% were correct to species. And I was amazed at that stage. Plant ID, in fact, was very nearly 60% correct. So we rerun all those samples through these apps in 2023 using effectively the same technology, and we were getting, you can see, an absolutely dramatic improvement. Over 80% were correct to species for the best apps, and certainly over 70 for the top apps. Flora Incognita and PlantNet. To me, more important than the raw percentage correct out of all the ones you study is the number that are correct where the app deigns to make a decision. So the percentage of the attempts that it actually made correct, some it refused to deal with. And so if you do give that assessment, the best apps improve slightly, and if we look at Flora Incognita, it's very much improved. It made very few errors. And I include an error, getting the wrong species but the right genus. And just to show, Flora Incognita and Seek are the two which often decline to give an ID. All the others, in this case, have given you something and then gone wrong. Okay. If you use a much laxer definition of success, that is, it's got a species in the right family, and count that as success, then again, the values have improved. If you, rather than doing the raw data on the left, which is the percentage of all the samples, if you take the percentage of attempts, where it's actually attempted to get it right, you now see that we're really approaching something which is, I think, usable in many areas. 100% for flora incognita. I mean, that was just a one-off. But several of the others are 90 or over or nearly. Even seek, which many disapprove of because it often doesn't give you the right answer, but it very rarely gives you the wrong. And this is highlighted in this table. Flora incognita and seek very rarely give you wrong answers. And this, to me, is critical for any app. And if if a level of confidence is not available, it's particularly critical for either doesn't give you an answer or it gives you a level of confidence. And PlantNet and PlantID are two which actually always give you a level of confidence with each identification. iNaturalist does it in a slightly different way because it gives you an initial answer which is general, i.e. the family or the genus. Okay, key results. All apps have improved since 2020. The best apps are now extremely good, not yet perfect. So for beginners, I reckon, and for scientific surveys, it's more important to be able to be reliable. We don't want apps that give the wrong answers. They will just be misleading. And so those which only give an ID to a level it's confident are the best. Many apps also give a ranked list of possibilities, and these can be very useful for experts or anyone who's in an unfamiliar region with different plant species that they're not familiar with. So, the second part of the study is our Urban Flora walk that we did in July, Mandy and I. We walked along the railway line in Newport and did a little bit of wandering around near our house. Counting every species, there are a few that I couldn't identify, particularly a few dead grasses, but we took 66 samples, and for each one we took the best image we could in the field using a grey background or arranged it if we really had to, but in very few cases did we do that. And just to give you the raw answer first, Flora incognita and PlantNet again performed extremely well, approaching 90% with the raw samples and being slightly over for Flora incognita for the ones that it attempted. You can see Seek is lower significantly, and iNaturalist is almost in the same order, but a little bit lower than the top two. Now, if we look at the percentage correct to family, again, we're really pretty good, over 90% in most cases, getting there. And the important figure, as I've been emphasising, is the percentage of errors, with, again, Flora incognita and Seek being very low. So, what determines the success of an app or the failure? Quality of pictures is clearly crucial. Focus, background, and for some species, discrimination, unfortunately, depends on cryptic information, which you can't see in the image. Are the hairs glandular or whatever, or the roots or something? However, even if we only have leaves or fruits, the apps are still pretty amazing. So I'm just showing a few of the pictures from our recent studies. I can't show you them all. And for each one, I've indicated the success for each of the 6 apps that we're studying: Flora incognita, PlantNet, iNaturalist, and so on. So all apps got Heracleum spondylium correctly, and almost all of them got Carex pendula, which we laid down on the gravel to clarify where it was. This one was Carex sylvatica, Calistegia sylvatica, and all the apps except for Flora incognita got that correct. Flora incognita, this was the only error it made, that called it Calistegia sepium. It hadn't looked close enough at the bracteoles, how they were showing, or it hadn't been able to make, because the other important character is size, and of course with images there's no cue as to size. Lots more pictures of the sorts of things we looked at, and you can see they're quite a motley range of pictures, yet in spite of this we're getting 90% approximately correct, or better, of the ones that are attempted. So what about this sensitivity to picture quality? So I took a lot of pictures of individual plants, trying to get poor focus, poor pictures, and to fool the beastly apps. And I found a seedling of coriander in our garden, in a pot. It was meant to be there. And took a set of pictures, some of them pretty awful, I think you'll admit. Particularly, I thought that was spectacular. Yet, go back and look at it. 3 of the apps got it right, and Flora incognita, it was the only one, it didn't get it wrong. It said, I don't know, take a better picture. And then other ones, I mean, look at that. I mean, how would anyone in their right mind, a human couldn't deal with it, but most of the plant apps did. Amazing. All got coriander. And I tried some erigeron. Again, sitting between our stones in our patio, a very scrappy looking plant, very set of scrappy looking pictures. But if you look along this, 3 of the apps got every single one of these right. Even this one, where the majority of the picture is actually a myosotis. So don't ask me. So, there's discussion and conclusions. What are the criteria for a good app? I think the top one is it makes the fewest mistakes. To me, that's the top criteria. Second is it needs a high percentage correct. Useful additions are things like having confidence in the ID that you get. It's useful if true species, even if it gets it wrong, are somewhere in a list of options, and this is particularly useful when you're in a new genus, species, family, or new area of the world. I think the most important thing that when people use apps, they've got to realise that they don't necessarily give you the right answer, and you need to use your own intelligence to check them. I don't know how you persuade people to do this, but if the app has readily available a range of check images, I think that is a great advantage. And ideally, where alternatives are indistinguishable, all alternatives should be shown, given. And I'll come back to that. One app, this morning when I was trying it, actually did that, which I hadn't known it do before. And it's also useful, or it would be useful, if the app worked without the internet, because as a botanist, you're often in a remote valley somewhere with no internet. And Seek is the only one that does that I know of. So the gold standard is a combination of those top 2 things. So just comparing this present review, right-hand side, with other published papers recently. There have been two particularly good or two major reviews of apps, and my results are roughly in line with others, so nothing to debate there, except for Campbell et al., who have got these amazingly low scores for iNaturalist. I get 71%, they were getting an average of 5% correct to species. Now that, in fact, I think was just a misreading of how iNaturalist works. Because what iNaturalist does is it, first of all, tells you what it's fairly confident of. I'm confident that this is in the genus Pseudonephalium, and then it comes down and gives you its suggestion what the species is. Luteo album, Jersey cudweed. So they would have ranked this as a failure. I rank it as a success, and it's a particularly good success because it's confident of the genus and it's given you a species. So that I think is just a mistake. So what I wanted to do was to try and actually, real time, if I've got a few minutes, do a few demonstrations. We will see if it works. You can never tell. Good. So, there. So, I'm walking to the Royal Society of Edinburgh today. I did some exploring, and immediately outside the hotel, many of you will recognise this species, I'm not sure if you can see it, which was talked about by John Grace yesterday. Let's try an app. Which one should we try? Well, let's try Seek to start with, because that's the least likely to work. And I haven't tried it on this plant, but we will see. Can we? Should we? There we are. No, we all know that it's got to grasses. No, can't go beyond grass, but it's very confident that it's a grass. So that's a half mark. Let's try PlantNet. While I'm doing this, I should say a little bit about each of these apps. PlantNet, as nearly all do, is give you the option of doing it from an image or from a photograph. Let's try it from a new photograph on this plant. If I can take a nice photo. I don't know, how do I? That should work. Yes, that looks lovely. And what do I call that? A leaf or a flower? Let's call it a flower. It's thinking. But what's interesting about this is, and the good thing about PlantNet, is it gives you a percentage accuracy. Here we are, 24%. So it's fairly confident. It could be Poa annua, but no, not really. Okay, so PlantNet is pretty good on this. I've been singing the praises of Flora Incognita, and this is where we see it doesn't work. We will see. We will see. Flora Incognita. So unfortunately, we've got a new photo for him. Do you think we've got that in focus? So, I mean, this shows the sort of state that some of these apps are at. And I should mention, I'll actually do it on the sample that we tried this morning. I picked this up. Let's get that out of the way. Done the wrong thing. Flora incognita. Go back. Discard. Identify. There. So this was found in the pavement this morning, and Mandy tried it with Flora incognita. I mean, it does ask for a flower. One of the other things about Flora incognita is it actually has options of, you can say it's a flower or a tree or a grass and so on. And you noted I didn't actually set it as a grass, and it told me which grass it was. So you don't actually need to use that. Even though there's no flower here, we'll just take a picture. Note I've got lots of rubbish in the background. I don't know if that helped. So it didn't like that, so we'll take another picture. This one's asking for a leaf. And the whole plant. So this time it has decided it's Cardamine flexuosa. I wouldn't like to say whether it's flexuosa or hirsuta from this, but when Mandy tried it on this same plant in the patio just opposite here, it actually said it could be one of two species, which I thought is the first time I've seen it do it, and to me, that's a brilliant outcome. Okay, so delete that. Discard.
Lynn, you've got 5 minutes.
Brilliant. Is there any others that I need to mention? PlantNet I've shown. iNaturalist is also good and behaves very similarly to PlantNet. Plant ID is a fantastic website, but I think for most people that has limited numbers of IDs that you can use. Picture this is equivalent in standard to the ones I've been showing, but that's a paid one. So you can use it without paying, but you have to go through getting rid of the advert each time, and so on. And another one which is very good is the Dutch app, which is very good for the Dutch flora, which is almost the same as ours, Obsidentify. And if we go on, and my final slide, advantages, quicker and easier than books, encourage beginners, provide useful suggestions for the more expert, and can give locations for recording. Disadvantages, inhibit ID skills, need verification. You may get incorrect data in records if you don't use them properly. So I don't think they're quite yet adequate for an automated survey. Thank you very much.
Lynn, that was great. Thank you very much. Now, questions. Lots of hands going up. That's a very impressive demonstration.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd give it something challenging.
Well, I think you did. Emily.
Hello. It's a question that always comes up when I'm teaching, what's the best app? And so obviously now I know what to answer, but clearly things are changing all the time. So what's the best way to find out when you do your next research or whatever?
What is the best way? Interestingly, the ranking of apps, in my experience that I've used, has not changed significantly in the 3 years since I first started, or 4 years since I first started doing it. The only thing one can do is just keep aware of what other people are using, because new apps do come. And unfortunately, iNaturalist started becoming available after I'd started doing the first study. Because I still think that's quite a good app, but it just doesn't reach PlantNet or Flora Incognita.
This chap down here.
AI improves with feedback, presumably. How do these apps get feedback?
Interesting. Many of the apps, you have the option of agreeing with its ID. So they are nearly all crowdsourced. So they're not professional inputs that go back. And that, to me, is potentially a significant disadvantage. But there have been some papers which suggest that crowdsourcing, as long as you have the right algorithm for filtering the crowdsourcing feedback, can be an incredibly powerful tool. And that's how Google got so good. I mean, I hardly mentioned Google here because it was just below the top apps. It gave a good number of useful things, but they give too many wrong answers. And they, I think, don't really filter the crowdsourcing to the same degree that the specialist apps do.
Another question?
So I noticed I use almost all the apps that you've got up there as well. And one thing I noticed that I hadn't realized until today, most of the apps don't request additional pictures of the same plant. You sort of have to submit one, that's your shot. But the Flora, was it Flora Incognita? That seemed to do that. So that's quite an interesting piece, because to me that would be an immense help, getting a leaf, a flower, the stem, or...
Yes. Flora Incognita requests a picture of a flower, then a leaf, and you can put it in whichever you want, or you can do what I did and just show the same picture.
Right.
And PlantNet also gives you that option, which is really great, because then you can just focus on leaves or side views or whatever you've got. And if you've got a flower and a whatever, I have no idea whether it actually makes a difference. I haven't, been able to distinguish three pictures of the same cardamine that we did,
Right.
or one with a flower and a leaf and I don't know. But the option is there. Whether it helps, I don't know.
And just some feedback on the previous question on how does it get better trained. I went to a talk, and I'm sorry I don't remember the professor's name, but it was at the Royal Botanic Gardens, and it's on the rhododendrons, and that is his specialty. They've been producing feedback for PlantNet, and the rhododendron accuracy is extremely high on PlantNet for that, but they've spent quite a few years feeding back to PlantNet.
PlantNet, Plant ID. So PlantNet is developed by a French group of academics, so they're academic botanists. Plant ID is a Czech group of academics who've developed this app. Flora Incognita is the German equivalent, and OBS-Identify was developed by the Dutch scientists. So those are all scientist-driven apps, and they're the ones which really come out on top.
Thank you.
This lady here.
Hi, my name is Hue Long. I'm a biodesigner from London. I got two questions. The first one, I want to clarify which one is your first target users in this app, because you have been mentioned beginner and researcher. And the second question is, I'm more quite interested about business. Where is your business position in the plant marketing, and how about your business mode? How you keep your app safe longer, have a healthy circular economic in this app?
Well, the first part of that question is easy. Different people will have their own favourite app, because my favourite is one of those PlantNet or flora incognita because it gives me some level of confidence as to whether it's got a good answer. Other people might prefer apps which give lots of solutions, lots of possibilities for you to make the decision about. It depends if you're a complete beginner, I think, or an advanced botanist. So, and I think I'll skip the second part of your question, if I may, because I don't think I have a good answer to it.
Okay. Time for perhaps 2 more questions. Trevor.
Thank you. I've now just downloaded Flora Incognita, having never known it before, and it's just identified a plant that I didn't know on the Edinburgh street. So I took a photo of it just now, so that's marvellous. Is this the end of the BSBI? I mean, the BSBI handbooks and expert panel and that need for us to engage at that expert level. Slightly flippant question, but a serious question. At what level do we... where does that engagement start with expert knowledge that you can gain from other people?
Are we going to lose all expertise? Yeah. I pass that question back. we have no answer to that. But, and interestingly, as early as 2020, I think it was, no, it might even be 19, there was a publication using apps to do the flora of London. So they used PlantNet as it was, and they did an automatic survey of the flora of London. I think it was split into mostly a couple of bits of South London. So it's already being done, removing the botanist. I can't answer your question, but I think it is a really pertinent one.
And I think it's really important for the BSBI to understand, or for all of us to understand what's happening and engage with that and make sure that we're up to date with it so that it doesn't run away with us.
And I would...
that confidence, I'm really impressed with that, the confidence levels with some of these apps, and that gives us as recorders confidence to be happy that the records that are coming in are.
But I would like to see, one of our roles is to actually feed back to these developers what we want in an app. And as I was saying, there are a few things I would like. I want apps to give you all possibilities that it can't distinguish, rather than just say, it's this.
Yeah.
I want the apps to give you a level of confidence. I want them to not give you wrong answers. If they don't know, they should say so.
I think, was there not a question at the back? Sorry, yeah, Brian. Sue.
I use something very different. I use an app on my iPhone, which is an information button at the bottom of your panel when you take a photograph, and I click that. And that gives me, most of the time, I'd say up in the 90s, the correct answer. Then if I have a problem, I then maybe go to PlantNet. So I have 2 forms. Have you tried this? Have you come across this?
Yes. Well, the iPhone one is identical, effectively, in operation to Google Lens. So that is the Apple equivalent.
Oh, right, okay.
So that does what Google Lens does.
Yeah.
And if you put in and Bing does the same thing, but Bing is appalling, and it'll give you all sorts of idiocies that it comes out with. But yes, so
people have
I always use a combination of apps.
Yeah.
I leave Flora Incognita to Mandy, I use PlantNet, and we see if we disagree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great talk and a fantastic demonstration of technology. Thank you.